couple of years ago I released a video where I beat the Calamity mod in a mere 9 bosses. Well, what if I told you it's now possible in only 4? And I'm not talking about defeating just one of the final 2 bosses. This includes both the Exomechs and Supreme Calamitas, with the other 2 being the Wall of Flesh and, in a rather bizarre turn of events, Astrum Aureus. Unfortunately, it's not a simple matter of fighting these bosses with underpowered gear. In fact, the bosses themselves are the least of my worries. The real enemy of this challenge is RNG, and my battle against it starts well before I even enter the world. The first challenge is actually finding a world that's viable, and that is going to take a while. So, what exactly classifies a world as viable? Well, it all comes down to how many auric landmines it has. If you haven't heard of these, I'm not surprised. They only got added in the recent 2.1 Brainstorm update, and can be crafted with 50 landmines and an auric bar. The secret that makes this entire run possible is the fact that auric landmines just so happen to spawn in Crimstone and Ebonstone in the No Traps and Get Fixed Boy seeds. And if I can find a world with 250 of them, I can shimmer these into the 5 auric bars I need for the auric quantum cooling cell and the altar of the accursed, allowing me to completely skip over Yaren. Full credit for discovering this goes to Redigo, who made a video theory crafting how you can defeat Supreme Calamitas in only 2 bosses. A very different challenge to this that I'm not even sure is humanly possible. Aside from needing Get Fixed Boy for another reason I'll get into later, it also generates way more auric landmines than the No Trap seed. Getting a world with 250 of them is still pretty rare though. Thankfully, one of the latest updates for T-Edit added support for Calamity, so I can use its Analyze tool to find out exactly how many mines are in each world. My first world has 219, the second has 218, then it drops down to 206 on the third and a mere 195 on the fourth. This process continues for quite some time. I generate a world, load it into T-Edit, realise there aren't enough auric landmines, then move on to the next. On and on all the way up to the 17th world where this happens. Oh, that's 250. So it's possible, but I don't think I want to go with this world. I also don't actually know if some of these are outside the world border. It could be that they're spawning like round here, or more likely on this side. But that is both good news and bad news. It means that it's possible, it's just slightly too few, I think, to be feasible in that world. While only 250 mines are strictly necessary, I do want to have at least a little buffer, as like I said, I'm not exactly sure whether they can spawn outside the playable region of the world, making some of them entirely inaccessible. And as if taunting me, a full 3 hours and 86 worlds later, I get another with exactly 250 mines. Another exactly 250. That's kind of annoying in a way, like not even a single tile of leeway. Throughout this whole process I made sure to take note of how many mines each world had, with the data trending towards an average of 203 with a standard deviation of 24. If we assume for a second that this follows a normal distribution, that puts the odds of getting a world with at least 250 mines at 1 in 40, with each mine after that being exponentially more rare than the last. In fact, to highlight just how barely plausible this run is, if auric mines were just 10% rarer, then that number goes all the way up to 1 in 1,124, and the odds of getting the world I eventually land on at over 1 in 5,000. Oh! 259! 259! We got it! With a grand total of 172 worlds created over the course of 5 hours, I finally get one with enough mines and can get started on the playthrough itself. Early game here is the pretty standard Get Fixed Boy experience. A long string of deaths with an occasional glimmer of hope from a life crystal or gold chest. Over the next few hours I slowly grind my way to full health and a decent enough set of accessories that I can focus on my real goal of getting a pickaxe with at least 65% power. I'll go over exactly why this is needed a little later on, but for now let's just cover how to actually get one. The latest Calamity update re-nerfed the Reaver Shark, so that's no longer an option. And unlike vanilla, the Brain of Cthulhu's creepers and Eater of Worlds segments won't drop any materials in Revengeance or Death mode. Thankfully though, there are still a few methods for collecting Hellstone without having to kill any bosses. First is being lucky enough to find the one Roxcalibur that generates in each world. This alone shimmers into more than enough Hellstone for a pickaxe, but in a large Get Fixed Boy world it's a lot like looking for hay on a needle stack, so while it would be incredibly convenient to stumble upon this, I won't be relying on it. The second method is collecting the 2 red seeking mechanisms found in the jungle lab, which can each be shimmered into 4 hellstone bars. Not enough on its own, but it can supplement some of our other sources. The next of which is simply opening ashen chests in the brimstone crags, as each of these will contain 2 to 5 hellstone bars. Thanks to Get Fixed Boy generation however, almost my entire crags biome is flooded with lava, and with the searing lava debuff dealing 15 damage per second, I doubt I'd survive long enough to get to the chests. That doesn't mean I came all this way for nothing though, as there is another item I can get here to help with collecting hellstone. All I need to do is take down some of the enemies that spawn here, which is a lot easier said than done when my best weapons are an ice blade and a plasma rod. Someone in chat recommends I make some lab turrets, which I've always overlooked in the past since they don't work during boss fights or events. I'm really glad I gave them a try though, as they make farming tanky enemies like these so much easier, and I'll definitely be keeping them in mind for any future runs where they might help. The item I'm actually looking for is the Slurper Pole, which allows me to fish in lava for obsidian crates. Sadly, since this isn't 1.4.5, the crates themselves don't contain hellstone, but what they do contain is Flamewaker boots, which Calamity adds a recipe for using 5 hellstone bars. Until the latest update, this recipe couldn't be decrafted, but now that it can, I believe it's the only renewable source of hellstone in the mod. That doesn't stop it from being incredibly slow however. So after my first unsuccessful fishing session, I take a break to grab the 5 hellstone bars found in the Underworld lab, the 5th and final source of hellstone pre-boss. After that, it's back to the monotony of fishing in lava for crates. But in all honesty, it's not too bad of a grind. It only takes around 25 minutes in total to get the 2 Flamewaker boots I need, and for a lot of that time I had a suboptimal fishing loadout and no crate potions. With that, all I have to do is head to the shimmer, throw in my boots and red seeking mechanisms, and I can finally make a molten pickaxe. So, why do I actually need one? Auric mines have a required pickaxe power of 250%, so even with the molten pickaxe, I won't be able to mine them directly. The mines also prevent you from mining the block directly underneath them, but what they don't prevent you from doing is block swapping that block. And Rodigo discovered that if you block swap this with the wooden spike, well, let's just say the mines don't like that very much. Auric mines can only generate on top of ebon or crimstone, so the only reason I needed a molten pickaxe is to have enough power to block swap these with the wooden spikes. It's not the pickaxe I end up using however, as there's already an upgrade I can make. In Get Fixed Boy worlds, the ore found in space planetoids will be replaced with cobalt and palladium, along with some other more deadly blocks like spikes, lava, and rather conveniently the wooden spikes I just covered. With this early hard mode ore I can craft a cobalt shield and upgrade it to an obsidian one for knockback immunity, a set of palladium armour for the high defense and regen, a palladium pickaxe for higher mining speed, and a few weapons to better defend myself. With that I can finally get started on the true grind of this playthrough, actually collecting the 250 auric mines. The problem is that these mines are incredibly volatile, and will be set off by the slightest touch from myself, an enemy, a critter, a projectile, a wire, or pretty much anything else you can think of. Most of these can be somewhat easily mitigated. I can use the Extendo Grip's increased reach to keep myself and my pickaxe further from the mines. I can avoid using my weapons near them, and I can check for anything that would trigger wires using a Danger Sense potion, which also highlight the mines themselves, so are absolutely vital to have while searching. The real problem is enemies, and since they spawn off screen I may not even get a chance to react to them before they set off a mine. At first I thought I could deal with this through reducing spawn rates with things like calming potions, peace candles, or the set bonus from angler armour, but upon trying this in a test world it seems to make very little difference. Instead of trying to reduce these though, I can fill up the spawn cap with easy to manage enemies, preventing any more from spawning and destroying my precious mines. Bees are the perfect candidate for this. They can be manually spawned through beehives to maintain the spawn cap, can fly pretty fast and therefore keep up with me as I explore the caves, and their low damage can be all but ignored with palladium armour and some defensive reforges. The only setback is that using a pickaxe or drill will damage and potentially kill the bees, but I can get around this by block swapping with platforms instead of directly mining blocks. It's slower, but much safer than the alternative. So with the main problem completely solved, I gather up a bunch of hive blocks and craft these into beehives, ready to finally start collecting all those mines. Yeah, this is going to be a problem. Turns out that mixing the Get Fixed Boy seed with specifically Death Mode converts those nice little 1 damage bee friends into evil 100 damage abominations that will quite literally give me the plague. They'll still work though. Granted, my strategy has to be a little different since there's no way I can tank the damage or debuff inflicted by these guys, but the concept remains the same. The main difference is that instead of spawning bees once and searching through an entire slice of the world, I have to place them every 50 or so blocks in their own little cages to ensure I'm always at the spawn cap. On the bright side, this does let me use my pickaxe over block swapping platforms everywhere I go, so it's likely not that much slower than my original plan. It is, however, much more expensive when it comes to bees, with me having to eviscerate entire ecosystems every time I run low on hives. Sure, the jungle got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time we created a lot of value for auric mine holders. The next few hours of the playthrough consists of me strip mining my way through the Crimson and placing a handful of hives every time the last batch falls off screen, with me occasionally branching out to collect any auric mines I see with my danger sense potions. Then when I reach the bottom I head back to the top, move roughly a screen's width to the right, and repeat. On and on, again and again while I carefully gather up the mines. By the time I cover the entire far left Crimson biome, over 4 hours have passed and I've collected 105 of them. The corruption on the opposite side likely won't have as many however, since it also has the Abyss taking up a wide section of the world. The upside down Abyss also prevents me from using my magic conch to get to the surface, so instead I start at the bottom and work my way up with gravitation potions. This is a really slow process and it takes a lot of focus to ensure I don't miss any mines or accidentally set one off. In Get Fixed Boy, even something as simple as breaking a pot can spawn a slime that heads straight for the nearest mine. Oh damn it. To deal with these inevitable accidents, I've been making frequent backups whenever I can and roll back to one of these whenever a mine goes off. If you're not a fan of this, I totally get that and I won't argue with you, but with only 9 potential surplus mines that may not even be obtainable, I personally don't want to go through this whole process again if I end up with less than 250. I think having to repeat the half hour of progress since my last backup is already punishing enough. Sometime later, I'm up to 197 mines after covering the far right corruption, a term I never thought I'd say in a Terraria video. Believe it or not, that was the easy part, as the 2 underground sections I've already covered are almost entirely made of the ebon and crimstone that mines spawn on. The remaining evil biomes are all on the surface and are much more varied, with dirt, mud, snow, sand, and many other blocks between the much rarer patches of stone. With a wider area to search and fewer places where mines can generate, continuing to dig tunnels every screen width would be a highly inefficient way to search for the remaining 53 mines. Thankfully, however, I've already come up with a solution. While beehives may spawn plague chargers, hive blocks themselves continue to spawn regular bees. Without killing Queen Bee for the hive rod, I have no way of actually placing these myself, but right under the surface of every Get Fixed Boy world is a thick layer of hive blocks that I can break to replenish my swarm. This strategy also works a whole lot better on the surface than it would in the caverns as there's much more open space. So instead of having to block swap platforms everywhere I go to avoid hurting my bees, I can jump into the pre-existing caves and only use platforms when I'm close to a mine. Other than constant bee stings and the far too common blood moon that grinds all progress to a halt, this really isn't too bad. The varied landscapes and faster movement keep me a lot more engaged than the repetitive search through the caverns. But there are of course still many hazards to be aware of. Yes, another one. I don't think that I Cthulhu can set them off, but either way I'm probably going to have to stop in a second to exit the world. Let's block this off so I can see. Yeah. Oh, god damn it. Thanks to setbacks like this, it takes me another 3 hours to search the entirety of the surface biomes. But there's a problem. I only have 239 mines. Despite searching everywhere that mines can generate, I still somehow end up 11 short. And I should have some extra mines too since the world generated with 259. So where are the remaining 20? Did I simply miss them, or could that many really have generated out of bounds? The only way to find out is to search the whole world, all over again. Missed one right next to the tunnel. Whereabouts? Oh, right here, yeah. How did I miss that? There's another one there as well. It's not one there, is it? Oh, it is there. Hidden by the block. Oh, there it is. Hidden amongst the thorns. Okay, if it's hidden amongst the thorns like that, god, it's basically invisible. Here's flow here. Oh, there was. Nice. 2 to go. One more. There's one. Got the last one. We did it. We have all the landmines. After 12.5 hours of nothing but searching for auric landmines, I finally have the 250 I need to move on. Okay, so now I can actually do things, which is exciting. The first thing I do is throw all 250 auric mines into the shimmer. We get 5 auric bars, and that is what we need to make the Altar of the Accursed, and where is it? The auric cooling cell, here. Of course, this isn't the only material required to craft these, and while it may seem unlikely right now, most of the remaining items will come from Astrum Aureus of all places. So now all I need to figure out is how to spawn him, and the playthrough is basically solved. As of the 2.1 Brainstorm update, the recipe for the astral chunk requires decrypting the planetoid schematic, which isn't actually too much of a problem. All this needs is the codebreaker itself and a decryption computer. And while this does use 100 wires in its recipe, I've been collecting active stone blocks from boulder traps which I can decraft to get them. The dubious plating and fallen stars can be obtained without any trouble, but as far as I can tell there's absolutely no way to get Starblight Suit without entering hard mode to spawn the astral biome, with this being the only reason that the wall of flesh is required at all. Other than that, the main problem with this recipe is how you get a mithril or orichalcum anvil to actually craft it. Resolving this problem was really my only contribution to the routing of this run, which was originally theorised by others as a 5-boss run that included one of the mechs. Funnily enough, upon hearing that I had solved this bottleneck, Rodigo was able to reverse engineer my exact method simply by asking, what would Chief Logan do? Feel free to take a second and try and answer that question yourself. I'm curious to see what you come up with in the comments. So, how do I get a hard mode anvil without having to fight another boss? The answer is already in my inventory, the 5 auric bars I just worked so hard for. I still need all 5 of these to summon the Exomechs and Supreme Calamitas, so I probably shouldn't throw them into the shimmer to get 1 Yaren Soul Fragment and 50 auric ore. I also shouldn't take exactly 30 of those ores and irreversibly shimmer them into Eulibloom ore, then continue shimmering one of these all the way down to titanium and another to orichalcum. But I do it anyway. How then do I get back to 5 auric bars when my only source of them is auric mines? Well, if you've seen my Calamity 1 block playthrough, then you may know where I'm going with this. Mining armour. In Calamity, this has an additional set bonus where mining an ore will have a 25% chance to duplicate it, with a random 3 to 6 second cooldown after it triggers. Since I already have a palladium pickaxe from the planetoids, I'm able to do this with the 1 orichalcum ore I shimmered. And after manually collecting a few with my pickaxe, I can use this little contraption I devised to repeatedly place and mine the ore. While holding left click, the Onyx excavator mount will automatically mine blocks in the direction the player is moving. Except you don't really have to be moving, just holding down one of the movement keys. By placing a chest on top of any block it will become unbreakable, so I can hold down my A key to make the mount think I'm moving to the left, despite the unbreakable block forcing me to stay in the exact same place. Holding down left click with the ore in hand will then continuously place and mine it, and after a few minutes of this I have enough orichalcum to craft both a hard mode anvil and a pickaxe with enough power to repeat the process with titanium. I don't need anywhere near as much titanium though, just enough for a hard mode forge so I can smelt my remaining 28 Eulibloom ore. This gives me the exact amount of bars I need to skip all the way to a blossom pickaxe, which, as you may know, is capable of mining auric ore. So I can use this same process to build my way back to the 50 auric ore I originally had before all of this shimmering and duplicating. Since auric ore deals insane damage and knockback upon contact, I sadly can't use the automatic drill setup I used on the others. There's not much reason to go over the 50 I need though, since I have no way to get more of the Yaren Soul fragments that are also required to make bars. So I can get this back now, my 5 auric bars, keep them very safe, but to do anything with them I do need a cosmic anvil. I did make sure to save a little extra however, since while I can't use the auric ore itself, I still have access to every other ore in the shimmer chain to completely break progression, and after around half an hour of duping Eulibloom, I craft a post-providence weapon and shimmer the rest to make a full set of hallowed armour, all while still being pre-boss. Like I said at the start of the video, bosses aren't the real enemy of this run, and the Wall of Flesh is the prime example of this. Guys, I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. I think this might be too difficult. I think we might die. Oh, thank God. That got close there. That was real close. Lower the difficulty, bro. I might have to.
barely made it through there, yeah.
Now that I'm in hard mode, I can take down wyverns for the souls of flight needed to make wings. But which should I go for? There's so many options in early hard mode, like angel wings, demon wings, fairy wings, tarragon. I made tarragon wings.
Going from fledgling wings to tarragon wings is quite the upgrade, I have to say.
I also craft another couple weapons from Yuli Bloom for some variety, collect 20 life fruit to max out my health, and make some other upgrades to my loadout like a Charm of Myths and Giant Tortoise Shell. Oh, and also a Badge of Bravery for a casual 10% melee damage and crit chance, along with 5 armor penetration. A perfectly balanced accessory to have in early hard mode. While doing all that, I shimmered the active stone I've been collecting to get wire, crafted a codebreaker base and decryption computer, then left the planetoid schematic to process. When that's done, all I need to do is collect some Starblight soot from the astral biome, and I can finally make the astral chunk needed to summon Aureus. So now the question on everyone's mind. How does defeating Astrum Aureus help me summon the final 2 bosses of the game? Well, in Get Fixed Boy, every boss has additional items it drops along with its normal loot. Sometimes these are a joke, like Duke Fishron dropping a bunch of fish-related items. Other times these are from much later in progression to help alleviate the difficulty of the seed, like the Hive Mind dropping all 5 class emblems in pre-hard mode. Then there's Astrum Aureus. Astrum Aureus has a joke drop, that being 1 to 9,999 crab banners. Astrum Aureus also has another drop, however. Any item in the entire game that has luminite bars in its crafting recipe. This includes all of the lunar armour, wings, pickaxes, drills and ham axes, along with a bunch of weapons that have some of the longest crafting trees in the game. Combined with Shimmer, Astrum Aureus grants access to so many materials that would otherwise need additional bosses to unlock. From the elemental weapons giving life alloy, to the Great Sword of Judgment giving cores of Calamity, and the Solstice Claymore giving astral bars. One of the drops even makes this whole decrafting process a whole lot easier.
Oh, Bottomless Shimmer Bucket is actually very good, because it means I can set up Shimmer here instead of having to go back and forth to the Shimmer.
The most important drops of all, however, are the Cosmic Anvil and Amalgam, 2 post-Devourer of Gods items with some very interesting ingredients.
That is one of the things that we need.
The first time I get these, they won't be shimmered though, as the Amalgam is a very useful accessory in its own right, and I'll need a Cosmic Anvil to craft many endgame items.
I think it's actually worth getting hit with the Amalgam on.
Items such as the Kingsbane, a post-Yaron weapon crafted with the 5 auric bars I've been holding on to.
Kingsbane. An annoying one? Oh come on, you can do better than that.
I will of course need these later to summon the final 2 bosses, but there's no reason I can't use them in the meantime to speed up farming Aureus. I do quite a lot of farming Aureus in this playthrough. With 89 potential items he can drop, my chances of getting the 2 that I want are pretty low, and I'll be needing quite a few of each to craft my final loadout.
Another Amalgam. Beautiful.
So while I constantly bargain with the Astral Crab, I'd like to take a moment to thank Cannon Ballistic for leaving this comment on my last low percent video. Before reading it, I had no idea that Astrum Aureus dropped Luminite items in the Get Fixed Boy seed, as it wasn't even on the wiki at the time. Without that comment, this run likely never would have happened.
Another Amalgam. Nice, 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 nice. We're getting lucky now.
After almost 8 hours of repeatedly killing Astrum Aureus, I'm ignoring almost every other drop and focusing only on Cosmic Anvils and Amalgams, as I already have way more of anything else than I'll ever reasonably need. In the end, it takes 807 defeats to get 11 Cosmic Anvils and 8 Amalgams. The Anvils are used almost exclusively for their Cosmolite, which I need for a set of Godslayer armour, the Sponge, a Dimensional Soul artifact, and many weapons. I actually end up with quite a bit more of this than I need, but the excess was quite useful to test all of the different weapon options. The Amalgams on the other hand were my sole source of Ascendant Spirit Essence, with each one decrafting into 4. Aside from being used alongside Cosmolite for my armour and the Sponge, these made a pair of Silver Wings with feathers I also got from the Amalgam, the Planebreaker's Pouch for increased range stats, and can even be broken down further into Necroplasm, Nightmare Fuel, Endothermic Energy, and Dark Sun Fragments. In turn, I use these to make the Dark Sun Ring for many increased stats along with knockback resistance, and most important of all, the Auric Quantum Cooling Cell required to summon the Exomechs, which needs 40 Endothermic Energy to craft. Just because I need this to summon the Exomechs, that doesn't mean I need it throughout the fight. So after calling up Draydon, I put him on hold while I decraft the cooling cell to get my auric bars back, then craft the Kingsbane again to use as my weapon. Now while the Kingsbane is good, the true star of this show is the Transformer.
So yeah, as you'll see, the Transformer kind of deflects projectiles.
In normal worlds, this accessory emits an aura around the player, and whenever a projectile enters this aura, it will generate a damaging shard that orbits the player, which can then be fired at the cursor using a hotkey. In Get Fixed Boy worlds, however, the Transformer straight up deflects projectiles that enter the aura as long as they aren't moving too fast. On top of this, there's no limit to how many shards it can generate. Or at least there's no limit in the code. I'm sure at some point either TModLoader or my PC would kick up quite a fuss. This doesn't quite make me immortal, however, as contact damage, many of the lasers, and Ares' Gauss Nuke can still hit me through the Transformer. It does somewhat trivialise the first few phases of the fight, but in Get Fixed Boy each mech will repeatedly spam its special attack once it's on its own. Usually, Ares' final phase would be near impossible to dodge without very fast and precise movement, but thankfully Rodigo taught me that the Transformer can even counter the Blender by just sitting right in the middle of it, which seems to deflect the beams into non-existence.
Yeah, and then you just come in here for the Blender, and because the Transformer deflects projectiles, it gets rid of the projectiles for you.
The worst solo phase is definitely Artemis and Apollo, but I have something else that can help with that. When firing the Kingsbane, you can release the attack key to fire a burst of homing bullets and receive massive recoil. This recoil is so fast that it can even outrun Artemis' Ohio Beam and Apollo's Zigzag Dash. I can then repeat this until they fall, and finally I'm left with just the worm. Thanatos' final phase isn't too difficult, but it can be quite hard to hit his head when he's constantly coiling around you. Add to that the fact that I can't swap to another item without being recoiled, and you get an inevitable situation like this.
Oh, I was trying to swap to my dash, but because I unclicked my Kingsbane. Oh.
That doesn't matter though, because on the next attempt, I accidentally find a much better way to deal with Thanatos. I mentioned earlier that you can use a hotkey to shoot the Transformer's shards in the direction of the cursor. Well, if you manage to do this while Thanatos has a few segments open to damage, it kind of just deletes him. So with a strategy figured out for each individual Exomech, I just had to actually pull it off in one go, which is definitely a lot easier said than done. It doesn't help that after each defeat I have to shimmer my Kingsbane, craft the Auric Quantum Cooling Cell, interact with the Codebreaker to start the fight, then shimmer the Auric Quantum Cooling Cell so I can recraft the Kingsbane, before finally heading to the Goblin to reforge it. Thankfully though, it doesn't take me too many more attempts to deflect Ares, recoil Artemis and Apollo, and transform Thanatos into scrap metal.
There we go. There's Thanatos dead. Transformer's pretty good, I have to say.
At this point I can proudly say that I've beaten the Exomechs in the lowest possible number of bosses, but I can't quite say I've beaten Calamity until I also deal with the Witch.
Oh wait, I don't need to even dodge. I just stand for the bullet hells. Wait, why is she not taking damage? Have I got to kill Sepulture and Get Fixed Boy? I need something to kill Sepulture with. I have something I can kill Sepulture with. That works. I think we might have this. Oh, and brothers as well. Oh, okay, they can deal damage to me, it seems. Yeah, their projectiles do not seem to be affected by the Transformer. I'm assuming the orb thing is still gonna deal damage to me, so I'll still need to avoid that. If only there was a way to get through these really quickly. I think I have to get rid of Sepulture again. Okay, I didn't quite have enough to get rid of him in like one go this time, but he's quite low. And I think, oh, okay, why is that such a small, what is going on? Okay, we got her. First attempt, yeah. That was really easy. Yes, it was. Transformer is overpowered in Get Fixed Boy, but when everything else is a joke, I feel like it's fine. So yeah, there we go. There's beating Calamity in 4 bosses. Wall of Flesh, Astrum Aureus, Exomechs, and Supreme Calamitas.
After the dust had settled, I decided to commemorate the 5 auric bars that got me here in the most honourable way I could think of, by crafting an auric toilet.
And the best thing about the auric toilet is you cannot sit on it. It's the only toilet in the game that you cannot sit on.
After my last playthrough, which was basically 140 hours of nothing but boss fights, I really enjoyed being able to focus on something else in this playthrough. Even if it was 5 hours of generating worlds, followed by 12 hours of looking for mines, 2 hours of duplicating ores, and 8 hours of farming Astrum Aureus. Challenge runs like this that fundamentally change how you look at the game and require all kinds of niche tech to get through are what keep me coming back to Terraria, playthrough after playthrough. And I hope you'll join me in wherever that takes me next. Thank you so much for watching, and a massive thank you to my patrons for their continued support. Bye for now.